Come take a chance, I'll show you where the mountains touch the sky. It's a horseback dance, and we can ride forever if we try. A dream in the distance, there for you to chase. Out in the sunrise with the wind on your face. Come ride with me, let's ride away.
So I had a follower ask me to do a video about how to tie up a traditional hackamore. So for those of you who don't know, this rawhide piece here with the kangaroo nose button, this is a bosal. This is a hanger, and this is a mecate. When you tie this all together to put on your horse and ride, it is a hackamore. It is not a bosal. And so I had, a couple of people ask me to do a video on how I tied this up. So I figured today, since I'm going to try out this hackamore when I put it together on Ramita and see how well she does in a smaller diameter hackamore and test her out in that, I figured it was a good day to demonstrate this. So starting out, when you get yourself a traditional hackamore set up and you go to tie your hackamore or tie your mecate to your bosal and all of that and make the hackamore, make sure that when you are tying it together that you have the same diameter mecate as you do bosal. So if you have a 5/8 bosal, get a 5/8 mecate. If you have a 1/2 inch bosal, get a 1/2 inch mecate. Because the point of riding in a traditional hackamore is to get a horse to start understand balance and feel. And so if you have a hackamore that doesn't match the diameter of your mecate, that's going to throw off that signal and it's going to throw off that feel, and it's not going to work as well for your horse. So starting to tie this out, I like to hold my bosal and my hanger as if the horse was facing me. So if this was on a horse right now, their nose would be pointing through me. The hanger would be up over the pole. Start out like that. You take the end of your mecate that has a Turk's head knot and has all of the frayed pieces like this. There's two ends to your mecate. One end should have a popper like this. This is going to be the get down side of your mecate that either goes into your belt loop or tied to your saddle. The side with the knot is going to go into your bosal. So I throw it through just like that, and I like to give myself enough space here so when I take my wraps that this Turk's head knot isn't pushing the wraps up. So give it a little bit of space there so that when you take your wraps, it's going to lay nice and flat. Next thing you're going to do is have it facing down just like this. Like I said, as if it was on a horse's face, their nose would be right here. Reach around to the left side and pull your mecate up and over, just like that, to start your wraps. Now, as you're wrapping, you want to wrap in a way that is going to encourage the twist and go with the twist of your mecate. Don't wrap it like this to where you're untwisting your mecate. You want to make sure that when you're wrapping it, you're twisting that mecate in a way that it's going to encourage it to stay uniform and not come undone. So as you're taking your wraps like this, I got two now, you're going to shove down those wraps and get them nice and snug against the heel knot of your bosal. And take however many wraps that you need for that particular horse and the size of their face. If you have a horse with a smaller nose, you might need to take more wraps. If you have a horse with a larger nose, you might only take one wrap. So it all depends on how it fits your horse. And that depends, that judges how many wraps you're going to take. So I'm going to take 3 wraps here, and I'm actually going to start over here. Like I said, twist it around and twist it in such a way that that mecate is going to stay uniform. And as I'm pulling and as I'm wrapping, I'm making sure that I'm pulling this snug up into here. It's not a really loose wrap. I like to have it snug. I don't like to have it super tight, but snug. Once you get the amount of wraps that you're going to need, you're going to take your mecate up and drop it through the nose, back, just as if your reins would go, just like that. And when you get to that point, you're going to make sure that those reins are laid down flat next to each other. Now, a good way to measure for this is an old cowboy trick. You take this and you put it on your horse's saddle horn, and then you pull down to just about the fetlock joint on that horse. And that's how you're going to kind of measure how much length you need. That's kind of an old cowboy trick there to see generally how much you need. Once you get it measured, I like to go through and see how the reins here have a twist in them. I like to go through and twist it so that the reins are laying nice and flat. So when you take a coil in your hand when you're riding, it's not figurating and getting all weird, and making sure that there's just a nice even drop there to where it's not twisting up and wrapping around itself, because then it makes it rein management a little bit harder when it's twisting up on you. So I like to make sure that the reins are laying nice and flat and they're not twisting up into each other like this. Once you get your measurement done and you know how much rein you need, you're going to make sure that you're laying the reins on top, or not on top of each other, right next to each other like this. If your hackamore is a little bit tighter or your bosal's a little bit tighter, you might have to do a little bit of pushing, a little bit of maneuvering to get those to where they're laying flat against each other. Once you get all of that squared away and straightened out, all you're going to do is you're going to take your get down, you're going to twist it in towards your bosal and just put it over the top, just like that. And then you pull it tight, just like that. And that's how you tie up a traditional hackamore and get it ready. Now, granted, rein length when you tie these up may vary depending on what kind of horse you're riding, depending on what you're doing that day. Generally, if I'm riding a horse in the hackamore, if I'm in the branding trap, I like to shorten my reins and make it to where I have more of kind of a roping style rein. So I don't have all of this rein when I need to get short on my horse in the branding trap if I'm roping or something like that. So I try to make sure that I shorten it up a little bit so I don't have so much rein that I have to manage on top of holding my rope as well. And it also depends on your horse as well. Some horses that are a little more forward moving and high headed, you might go with a little bit shorter rein as well, but it all depends on the horse. But once you get it all tied up and you're kind of figuring out, you know, what size or how many wraps you need to do, and figure out how tight you need to make that hackamore, you can bring it over to your horse and put it on your horse and see. So once you get your hackamore tied up and you're not quite sure if you have the right amount of wraps, you want to see how it fits on your horse, you can always try it on your horse first, starting out, before you get on, and make sure that you didn't take too little or too many wraps. So first thing I'm going to do here is put it on Miss Remuda, and this hackamore's been ridden on my husband's horse in the 2-rein setup, so it's a little bit long for her face. So I'm just going to tighten up this just a skosh here. And then what I'm going to do is tie that extra off so it's not popping her in the eye. But next thing I want to do with this is take this off so she's not stepping on the halter and choking herself out. Next thing I generally do is just kind of pick this up and see how much movement is there. You can see this one's a little bit tight against her face. She's still responding to it, but there's not much movement of that heel knot before it comes into contact. It's really kind of tight on her face. So I'm actually going to take this off of her and do one less wrap on her. So we're going to put this back here on Miss Remuda, just like that. And then right there, there's a lot more freedom of movement of that hackamore, and I could see the nose button engaging a little bit better, and it's a lot more free moving for her on this heel knot. It's not so restricted. So one last wrap was just perfect for her and what we're looking for. And so you can see there's a lot more movement there in the hackamores engaging and functioning properly. So right there is exactly where we need it. So I know in the future with this particular hackamore, moving forward with Miss Remuda, because she's got a little bit boxier of a nose, that I need to take one wrap and then do my reins and tie it off versus taking 2 wraps. So in the future, you can keep that in mind. When it comes to if you take too little of wraps, I like to just kind of push it forward and see if you were to push it forward, if it's just going to pop off and slip off underneath the chin. If it's very easily just slipped underneath the chin of that horse, you might take one more wrap, 1 or 2 more wraps, depending on what you need to see. but right there is just about perfect. It's just tight enough to where if I were to pull her in this hackamore when I'm leading her, it's not going to slip up underneath her chin and up off of her face. It's going to stay where it needs to stay. And then it's also loose enough to where there's enough mobility of that hackamore to where when I'm picking up these reins, there's still a lot of pre-signal and a lot of feel with the shift of the balance of that